Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin in Ottawa tonight, where Governor General Mary Simon read the speech from the throne this afternoon, where the federal government outlined their priorities for the coming session of Parliament. It is the first one since the Liberals were returned to power for a third term last September. It's also the first throne speech delivered by an Inuit Governor General. APTN's Fraser Needham reports from Ottawa.
It was Mary Simon's first throne speech done inside the Senate, and it builds on four themes the Liberal government will tackle: growing an economy that works for everyone, fighting climate change, making sure our communities are safe, healthy, and inclusive, and moving forward on the path of reconciliation. Not surprisingly, Governor General Simon made mention of the hundreds of unmarked graves found on the sites of former residential schools this summer. She said the truth cannot come until the past has been reconciled.
As the government continues to respond to the calls to action, it will invest in that truth, including with the creation of a national monument to honor survivors and with the appointment of a special interlocutor to further advance justice on residential schools.
The government is also committing to new investments in mental health supports for residential school survivors and accelerating work on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Creating a more inclusive society is yet another commitment where all Indigenous people feel welcome.
When someone in our country is targeted because of their gender, or who they love, or where they come from, the way they pray, the language they speak, or the color of their skin, we are all diminished. Everyone should be and feel safe.
As part of this commitment, the Trudeau government says it will renew its anti-racism strategy. Other priorities include a pledge to implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and fair and equitable compensation for families affected by a woefully underfunded on-reserve child welfare system. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole gave his response to the throne speech, saying it was full of symbolic gestures and empty promises, with no plans to address Canada's economic crisis.
Seniors are trying to stretch every dollar as inflation wreaks havoc on their fixed incomes. Small businesses are being squeezed by the supply chain crisis, and Mr. Trudeau's tax increases are killing their margins. As we approach the holidays, some parents are worried about putting presents under the tree. And every month, the lines at food banks across this nation grow. The reality facing Canadian families seems to be something that the Liberal government are all too happy to blissfully ignore.
O'Toole says the Conservative Party will continue to stand up for the millions of Canadians being left behind and ignored by the Liberals. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is also reacting to the speech from the throne. Singh says the Liberals have failed to outline real action on pressing issues such as the economy, healthcare, and climate change.
This is not a speech that demonstrates a willingness to work together or shared values about building a better Canada. There is no clarity about whether there will be a vote or not, but we want to make it clear to the Liberals, as we've said in the past, as I've said, don't take our support for granted. This is not a speech that looks like they're interested in working together at this point.
And Singh says the party will be discussing their path forward if the speech is put to a vote. Well, in British Columbia, the journalist and documentary filmmaker who were arrested in the Wet'suwet'en pipeline dispute have been released from jail. The two were arrested by RCMP on Friday and held in jail over the weekend. A Prince George judge released photojournalist Amber Bracken and documentary filmmaker Michael Toledano on the condition they comply with an injunction to stay away from the construction of the Coastal GasLink pipeline and appear in court in February. Their arrests led to several dozen news outlets and press freedom organizations calling for their immediate release. According to Get 'em Done Clan, 10 people arrested in RCMP raids last week remain detained in Prince George. The Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations in Alberta are appealing to the Assembly of First Nations to remove the Alberta AFN Regional Chief. They say her term expired at the end of June and she has not stepped down from her position. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
Marlene Poitras has been the AFN Alberta Regional Chief since February of 2018. The following month, there was an inauguration for her, which included chiefs from across Alberta and then National Chief Perry Bellegarde. The AFN Charter limits terms to 3 years. Cameron Alexis is the interim Executive Director of the Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations and a former AFN Regional Chief. He says Poitras' last day as Regional Chief was the end of June. He says that she has not relinquished her power and is still representing Alberta chiefs against their wishes. Alexis says the matter is now before the courts.
We've exhausted all avenues. In other words, there was motions made for her to step down at the end of June 2021, in which her term ended. And she refused to step down, and she has created her own organization as the regional chief, and that office, AFN-AA, was not even sanctioned or ratified by the chiefs of Alberta.
He says he does not know the reason behind her decision not to step down.
She herself has acknowledged that her term is up, but why she refuses to leave that office is a mystery to me.
Alexis says the national AFN has not been receptive to their concerns.
And the chiefs have reached out to the national chief, Archibald, twice by virtue of the documented letters. She has not responded on the second letter at all. The point here is that AFN at the national office funds the regional chief's office. So therefore, what we're saying is you need to intervene as a national chief because your regional chief is disrespecting the chiefs of Alberta.
Alexis says a lack of action by AFN National Chief Archibald could have serious repercussions.
I think National Chief Archibald has to get involved here, suspend the funding until such time this is cleared up, because you are disrespecting the chiefs of Alberta, the Treaty 6 chiefs. Furthermore, if you're not careful in my observations, you're going to lose the Treaty 6 chiefs of Alberta, AFN, national office. And that's a concern here.
Marlene Poitras' office gave APTN a statement which reads in part, the regional chief would welcome an election call and the normal democratic process contemplated by the Assembly of Treaty Chiefs terms of reference to choose the regional chief. The regional chief has repeatedly asked that the AOTC hold the regional chief election. Instead, a costly and divisive litigation process has been undertaken by the CTS-FN to address an election issue that could have been resolved by a majority vote and the AOTC in short order. The national AFN have not commented on the story before airtime. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Well, cleanup efforts are underway in British Columbia. We'll have more on that coming up after the break. Welcome back. Cleanup efforts are still underway in BC after the massive storm there last week. However, with more storms on the way, First Nations communities that were hit hard are busy prepping for more possible flooding. APTN's Tina House has that story.
We're here on the Chihuahua First Nation, just outside of Hope, BC, where just last week this community was completely cut off for 4 days. They had no power and there was flooding all around them. As you can see behind me, the Army has now arrived because we're just hours away from another storm. With the Canadian government sending 500 soldiers to flood-ravaged BC, this platoon was sent to help sandbag around these homes to prevent more water damage. This is Naomi John's house. She says she's incredibly grateful for the support of the Canadian Army and her 2 nephews who are helping.
I feel great to meet some of the guys from the armed forces, to be here and support us, and our community members, my family, they're here, so it's been a blessing. We're just really happy. It takes a lot of stress off my family to have us taken care of right now.
Lieutenant Isaac Coleman is stationed in Edmonton. He normally commands 16 soldiers, but today he's in charge of 20 soldiers here at the Chihuahua First Nation, helping prep for the next series of storms.
It flew out here by Hercules, so the first chalk flew in 96 hours ago, and I flew in about 48 hours ago. So it was a nice feeling to know that we were coming in to actually help people doing a domestic op, and that there was people who were actually in need of help out here. So
this cell phone footage shows the extent of the flooding that engulfed this community. At some points, it was waist deep high. Naomi says she has never seen anything like this in her life.
The emergency was to try to stream some of this water out of here because our backyards were flooded and we didn't have hardly any support. Like, it was very scary and hard and stressful.
She says luckily no water entered into her house, but her other family members who live nearby weren't so lucky. Just down the road on Highway 7, this massive mudslide closed down the highway in both directions. And on the other side of the reserve, a rock slide essentially cut the community right off by road for 4 days. Deanna John is a band counselor. She says they had a generator set up in the gym and took in 90 stranded motorists who were trapped between the mudslide and the rock slide.
We could only get through with the truck, couldn't get through with a car or anything. And when we made it here, they were already set up in the gym with allowing all the stranded people to sit in the gym and try and warm up.
Rose Peters is the band manager. She says it was chaos during that harrowing experience.
We didn't know what to do. Like, we've never had this happen before, so this is the first time we've opened up a warming center for people, stranded people, and our community members. So we didn't have no food. We weren't prepared. We had like six moose hamburgers, and then we made a call out for donations, and our people did really good coming forward, bringing food in so we could cook for everybody.
During this scary time of the pandemic, was it worrisome for you to have that many strangers here all together?
Yeah, it was, but we did the whole COVID stuff, like masks and sanitizers and distancing. We tried to, but it's really hard in our gym.
APTN deployed a drone to capture the extent of the damage, showing up close just how much water, mud, trees, and debris came tumbling down after the storm called an atmospheric river. That storm produced nearly 250 millimeters of rain in just 48 hours. Since then, the highway has been cleared for traffic in both directions, but there is a major concern for the impending storms on their way this week and the instability of the area. Meteorologists are warning of another atmospheric river on Thursday and continued rain until early next week. Deanna John has a message for the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, if you're listening, please help us with getting our creeks functionable so that we're not dealing with flooding every year, so that we can actually maintain our resources that we have back here. And a lot of our people lost a lot of freezers. Everybody down here had a freezer, and they've lost all of their meat, wild meat, fish, everything, you name it. It was in there, berries, veggies, you name it, was in there, and it's all gone.
Tina House, APTN National News, Chihuahua First Nation.
Devastating stuff. Thanks, Tina. It's no secret that many Indigenous communities across the country don't have access to clean drinking water. Well, in Alberta, an Indigenous-led organization has come up with new technology that could bring clean water to Indigenous and remote regions. This treatment plant is a new pilot project by Steel River Group's Water Care Company and is currently being tested on the Stoney Nakoda Nation west of Calgary. The province has committed over $300,000 to the project. Dylan Smart with Water Care Company hopes to see this in more communities in the future. He says this technology is cost-effective and portable enough for remote areas.
You know, too many remote and Indigenous communities across this nation face wastewater issues. And, you know, Stony Nakoda is no different from that. So with this technology, we truly believe that we're going to make a difference in really supplying this technology to remote and Indigenous communities everywhere.
And we'll bring you more details on that pilot project here tomorrow. Yukon RCMP are renewing calls for information related to a man who went missing 5 years ago. James Kunuk was last seen in Whitehorse in the fall of 2016 and has not been heard from since. He was 34 years old at the time and is of Inuvialuit descent. He's also known to have used the last name Springay and previously lived in Vancouver. Yukon RCMP say his family is concerned about his well-being and looking for answers.
It's 5 years sort of date, so just to put it back out there in the public consciousness and just to keep it alive, I suppose, for us and for the family.
If you have any information regarding the disappearance of James Kunuk, please contact the Historical Case Unit at 867-667-5500. Still to come, a new clothing line looking to help combat racism on the ice. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And as temperatures drop across Turtle Island, Jay Crochane wanted to remind us that warm weather is just 6 months away by sending us this sunset over West Hawk Lake, located in southeastern Manitoba. Feel free to send your photos to share at aptn.ca and include all the details. And tune in each day to see our next photo of the day. Thanks, Jay. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 2 with rain in Halifax and Fredericton. -6 in Kuujjuaq, 2 below in Nain. +1 and sunny skies in Montreal, snow and 3 below in Chibougamau. +7 with rain in Sault Ste. Marie, 6 with showers in North Bay. A rain-snow mix and a high of 6 in Thunder Bay, snow and 4 below for Sioux Lookout. Much cooler in northern Manitoba, 16 below for Thompson, God's Lake and Norway House. 0 with snow in Winnipeg, +2 with snow in Brandon. 11 below in Regina, sunny and 14 below in Saskatoon. Sunny and -22 in Uranium City, 18 below in La Ronge. Over in northern Alberta, -8 with snow in Peace River, snow and 4 below for Graham Prairie. +2 in Medicine Hat, 3 in Lethbridge. 6 with showers in Vancouver, 8 and rain for Victoria. A rain-snow mix and -1 in Prince George, +4 in Smithers. -28 in Old Crow, snow and 11 below for Whitehorse. -20 in Yellowknife, 27 below for Norman Wells. -24 in Sax Harbor, -21 in Paulatuck. 14 below with snow in Arviette and Whale Cove. -19 in Resolute, 8 below with snow in Igloolik. An Alberta man is using his unique line of hockey clothing to help Indigenous kids play hockey and combat racism on the ice. Michelle Karlinzig has more on Smudge the Blades hockey clothing.
As someone who played junior-level hockey, Hartland Kingfisher is no stranger to the struggles Indigenous youth face in the hockey community.
I know exactly how the struggles were, with hockey fees and hockey equipment and all that stuff.
Kingfisher created Smudge the Blades, a clothing company that brings Indigenous culture to the skating rink. His brand ships across Canada and has been worn by 9-year-old TikTok sensation Washie Janot from Barrier Lake, Quebec. Through scholarships, Smudge the Blades has helped pay for some families' hockey fees. Kingfisher says the feedback from parents has been overwhelming.
Very overwhelming with just seeing parents, their kids couldn't play hockey this year if they didn't get the fees. And then just seeing on messaging, even phoning, I phoned a couple of them just to hear or see the weight lifted off their back, and then them just say thank you so much.
Kingfisher is also using his platform to call out racism in hockey. On his Facebook page, he passed on stories of racism like Ethan Bears and a young man named Keegan from Swan River, Manitoba. Keegan is a 16-year-old high school hockey player, and last month he says he almost quit the sport after parents and spectators yelled racist slurs at him.
It didn't make me feel too well, and I just kind of kept it to myself and just texted my mom what happened. And
Keegan's father, Roger Brightnose, says the support from Smudge the Blades helps the larger issue of racism.
It was really nice of them to do that, and like it created some exposure of how racism is really taking its effect in hockey for these young kids. So that was. It was really good to create some awareness for his story, not only him, but others as well. So.
Michelle Karlenzig, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Great looking gear there with a good message. Indigenous rights advocate Tara Houska had what would appear to be a promising career working within the U.S. government. But the slow-moving nature of change in government and the no-dapple movement in Standing Rock led her to shift gears to the front lines of the resistance to energy projects. On a new episode of Face to Face airing right after the news, Houska discusses the emotional and physical toll of being on those front lines.
You miss a lot, and you are increasingly at risk, right? When you do this type of work, you're under surveillance by law enforcement, by sometimes federal law enforcement. They're actively trying to suppress resistance. The workers that come in, it can be really quite frightening at times. When you're out here and you're in these places, you're on a dirt road in the middle of the woods, and it's just you and it's just them, right? And it's not like there's like this massive, 10,000 person swell. It's just a handful, right? And it can be really quite dangerous.
It's a timely episode, and you can watch our entire interview with Tara in less than 2 minutes' time. That is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For much more, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. And be sure to tune in tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time live for In Focus. With Christmas just around the corner, the team has compiled a list of gifts that are 100% Indigenous created. Going to be a great show. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Stick around. Face to Face is next. Have a great night.